hate small talk. It always starts with, so where are you from? To which I answer, LA. And then comes the dreaded second question. Oh really, what part? Shoot. I have to decide what type of black person I want to be. I'm going to categorize all non-black people as white. Yes, even the Asians and the Mexicans, because that's what a black girl would categorize you as if she saw you on a date with me. As a black man, I've heard tons of responses from both blacks and whites when I tell them where I'm from. If I say I'm from a bad neighborhood, I could be thought of as poor or low class to a white person. And I might get questions like, have you ever seen anyone get killed? But if I say it to a black person also from a bad neighborhood, I might get the fist pump or the secret black nod of approval. It seems so much easier to be white. You only have two labels, rich white, poor white. But me, I could be the poor black guy, the bougie black guy, the thug black guy, or the white black guy. So back to the question, where am I from? Let's see. I was born to a mom from Watts, and my dad grew up in the projects in Sacramento. Sacramento had the good projects because white people lived there too. My parents combined forces, and to give their kids a better life, they decided to buy a house in Rolling Heights, a mixed-race neighborhood. They sacrificed buying the newest Cadillac that would have been the envy of all their friends to put my sister and I in private school. It cost a lot to make sure your kids never describe something as more better. Growing up in Rolling Heights was fantastic. Even though some of our neighbors put their homes up for sale as soon as we moved on the block. And one little girl told me that her mom said that my mom kept me in the oven too long and that's why I'm black. Don't worry, my mom helped my own racist comeback about her being raw and not cooking enough. I was a kid, so nothing mattered. I still played and had fun with all the kids. I even played inside of the house that said the oven comment. I remember my mom and dad having a conversation in the living room about me when I was 4 years old. They said I would probably talk white because I'm growing up around so many white kids. I didn't know what they were talking about. What is talk white? How could I be white? Number one, my name is DeJon. And number two, see that fro? And why does where I'm growing up have anything to do with it? I was about to find out. My dad tells me a story of taking my sister and I to Watts when I was about 4 years old, and it was the first of the month. If you're a person that tried to up your street cred by listening to Bone Thugs and Harmony, you knew that it was time to get up, and cash your checks. We passed by this check cashing place with a line down the block. My sister and I were glued to the car window staring at it like the first time a boy sees a porno. We yelled, "Dad, Dad, look at all those black people!" Apparently, my sister and I didn't even know that many black people existed. I thought those ovens must be working really well over at Watts. Of course, my dad was very ashamed. His kids were getting excited about seeing their own people. And that day, he made a decision to bring us around our family and other black people more. That's when my regular Watts visits began. Watts was fun. I would visit one day or two over the weekend, see lots of black people play in the streets, race faster people, and learn cool slang none of my white friends knew at home. I literally brought the words cool and fresh to white people. Then I would go back to being the only black kid in class. My classmates and I both noticed I was different. They would ask me questions about why I was brushing my hair when I didn't have any hair. I guess white people think you need at least an inch of hair for it to be considered hair. Black people call 1 millimeter's worth hair, and you start brushing it immediately. That's when you can say you have waves for the babes. But my classmates would tell me my brush was the brush they used on their dogs. Today that sounds kind of racist, but in their mind, it was what they saw. It was different than what everyone else around them did. The same kids that would tease me about the dog brush I used on my head would invite me to their homes and birthday parties, and I would play with their G.I. Joes. So other than eating at 5 p.m. and the food being less flavorful, I mean, who eats beets for dinner? Not black families in the 1980s. But other than it was very similar to my own home. I loved my life of hanging with the blacks on the weekends and the whites during the week. Then my parents sent my sister and I up to Sacramento one summer to spend time with our grandparents. When we came back, my parents had separated, sold the house, and we now lived in Watts with my mom. Not only did they deny me the chance to say goodbye to all my friends, but they had also thrown away my Garbage Pail Kids sticker collection. How could they throw away Barf and Barbera? Little did I know, stickers were the least of my worries. In one fell swoop, I went from being the only black kid in class to being the only white kid in class. I couldn't do anything right. I walked white, I talked white, and don't even start on my attire. It seemed like the only thing I did black was use this brush that white people use on their dogs. So Watts isn't quite as fun when you live there every day and you're different from everyone else. When you're the white kid, you get picked on a lot regardless of how tall you are. Not one person was scared of me. In addition to weekly fights, everyone had a problem with my clothes. I came from a middle-class neighborhood to a super poor neighborhood. Kmart kickers, as they called them, were okay in Rolling Heights, but not in Watts. I came home and told my mom, I don't know what name brand is, but I need some of that badly. So my dad took me to Ross and bought me some Adidas. I was so happy to show them off at school. But guess what they said? Look at this fool with some old Adidas. You have to have the newest versions too? Dang. So why so much emphasis on shoes? I didn't understand at the time, but I guess people care about things they can control. If you don't have a lot of money and can't buy nice houses and other assets, you focus on things in other categories. Plus, back in the slavery days, slave owners allowed slaves to dress up for certain occasions to help them temporarily escape their poverty and subordinate positioning within society. So fast forward to today, we still like dressing up with nice shoes, best clothes, or cars to escape some of the same things. People think slavery was so long ago, but it wasn't. This is my great-great-grandpa. His dad was a slave. So it's not hard to believe that some of those practices are still around today. So I realized I had to learn to be black very quickly. I bought the right clothes, Levi jeans ironed with the perfect crease and worn slightly slacked. I bought the right shoes, Nike Cortez, Lottos, and of course, LA Gear boots. And I changed the way I spoke a bit. I might say stove instead of store. Gotta remove the R. The R makes it white. I might say, I'm finna go to the store and get some candy. You want some? But before I would have said, I'm heading to the store to get some candy. Would you like anything? I even picked up a new cooler walk. It was a little slower and had a slight limper bounce. Was I being fake? Was I trying to be more black? No, I was adapting to survive. I took a look at my environment and added portions of it to use when needed. As I learned the Watts culture and made some adjustments to fit in, you could still tell I wasn't quite from the neighborhood, and that made me an easy target for gangsters in the neighborhood. One day, I was at the Jap store. That means a Japanese person owns the store, but really a Korean man owned it. In Watts, no one's really worried about being politically correct. Unlike my white neighborhood store that has some healthy snacks, the Jap store had pickled pig feet on the counters, now and laters, and these bubblegum cigarettes. One day, one of the gangsters noticed I didn't eat the pickled pig feet and knew I was the perfect target for a fight. I was with a group of non-gang affiliated friends, and he was with a big group of Crips. He asked if I wanted to fight, pushed me, and when I spilled soda on him, he punched me a couple of times. Then, in a forgiving gesture, he took the bandana off of his face. Yes, he was wearing a bandana like a cowboy. Wrapped it around his right hand, reached out to shake my hand with the left hand, and then punched me in the face. Then I did what any one man would do against that group. I ran as fast as I could down the street around the corner. Did you know black people aren't supposed to run from fights? I was too white to know that, but apparently it's one of the 7 deadly sins. So when my big sister told my mom that the boy I ran from was in front of the house, my mom made me go out and fight him. The whole neighborhood came out to watch. The white black guy against the black guy. So embarrassing. The next time a gangster who was even bigger than me decided to target me, I punched him in the face and kept hitting him hard on the ground. And from then on, no one messed with me in the neighborhood. I was for real black now. Soon my dad took me with him back to Sacramento. Now I said store again and pronounced all my R's. They called me choir boy because I was always singing gospel songs and was such a good boy. Then every summer and holiday I would go back to Watts and spend time with my mom. The R's would leave and my environment awareness would rise. I was living 2 lives and no one knew. I moved back to LA my senior year to have my best shot at a track scholarship. I wanted to go to UCLA because I couldn't wait to be in a good neighborhood. But on my recruiting trip to USC, a group of black girls asked if I was going to school there. When I said maybe, they started cheering, "Yes, more black men, more black men!" And I knew that was a school for me. It's really amazing. This little boy from Watts makes it to one of the greatest universities in the world to compete in his favorite sport and become an NCAA All-American. Here, I really started to notice things I hadn't seen before. Growing up the way I did not only made me aware of race, but of all differences. I was different than some of the other black students that came from the hood because they didn't have my white school experiences. And I was different from some of the black students that grew up around white kids because they didn't understand some of the rules blacks had in the hood. I really saw that I was the best of both worlds. I could choose which to fit best into my life. I noticed my friends that planned to be anesthesiologists already had family in the field and taught them the steps to take. Then I thought about what skills were being passed down at Watts. Dancing? That wasn't going to get too many people out of the hood. Were there any judges, attorneys, developers that lived in Watts and taught kids the steps? No. Who wants to live in Watts after you make it? No one. Everyone's goal is to get out. Then I realized I had to keep going back. But what happens when I do that? While I was in college, I got pulled over by the police in Watts for no reason, with guns blazing, telling me to get out the car. I was scared to get out because I didn't want them to think I was reaching for a gun. So I asked if I could take off my seatbelt. Then they handcuffed me and placed me in the back of the police car while they searched mine. So what if the cops shot me? Would my friends at USC be outraged at the cops? Or would they wonder why was I in Watts in the first place? Because I hear stuff like that all the time. Why would you go there? But if I don't go back there and show my little cousins and neighborhood kids that we can go to college and be successful, who's gonna do it? So the DeJon of today works in corporate America. He's a top performer and still walks the line between black and white. I no longer need to make the drastic changes I made as a kid to survive, but I change my voice a bit when I'm at work. I'm not as good as my black friend Navarro over there who grew up around all white people. But I still have a fairly good neutral voice. And most of the time, I'm the youngest and only black person on my team. The older Midwest people like to find out where I'm from. Today I proudly say, I'm from Watts. And I wait for the reaction. It's usually followed by something like, oh my gosh, how was it growing up? And if you can make it, anyone else can with hard work. That makes it sound like people in the neighborhoods like Watts are there because they don't work hard the way I did to get out. I don't feel that is fair because I don't think other kids that grew up in Watts were the same as me. They didn't have experience of other neighborhoods and cultures. Most of them didn't have a dad that was always telling them what to do. And most of them didn't have anywhere else to go when they wanted to get away from the environment we were living in. So I had some advantages that helped me out in ways they did not. I'm grateful for my Watts experiences. I would say that my life in black and white neighborhoods has given me an understanding of people's differences without judging first. I wish my kids could have the same experiences as I did, but it's just too big a risk to have them living in the environments that I was in. So I'm gonna have to find another way. But I wish everyone could live the way I did and learn all the good parts of all people so that we could all love each other more and assume the best when understanding someone who's different, whether they're black, or white, or use a dog brush on their hair.